Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take a cinema legend and then take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
And we are on episode 50 of the official 50 episodes.
Whoa! Sorry.
We do wrap-up episodes. We had a bonus episode, but this is episode 50. This is the 50th film we're covering, and we're doing it at the end of the Richard Linklater 5. The previous 4 weeks we've talked about Slacker, Dazed and Confused, Before Sunrise, School of Rock, and now, fittingly, we have gone throughout the years to cover Boyhood.
You wrote that before you did this, right?
I did all 50 of these things.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
I set this up for a year. Boyhood is a film that came out in 2014. This is the film that very famously took 13 years to film as Richard Linklater kept coming back to Texas to film with the same actors the next installment of these characters' lives as we watch young Mason grow up and eventually graduate high school. And not only do we see the maturing of Mason, we also see the relationship with his family, the different husbands that enter the story of the sister, and the strange and lovely and weird moments that happen in life. This is an incredible film, and I have not said one word to Eric about what he thinks about the film, so I'm very nervous right now. Eric, what did you think of Boyhood?
Why would you be nervous about what I think?
Well, I think because we have an arc going now where you hated Slacker, and you kind of warmed up more because you had the whole Linklater arc of all right, he added characters, now he added story.
But I really, really like Dazed and Confused.
It's true. It's true.
I love Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
And I think School of Rock is fine.
Yeah.
It's good. And certainly worth a conversation.
Sure. So what do we have now with Boyhood?
I think that Boyhood is a perfect film to end this on. So I guess you're right.
Yes.
It is a good arc, and to see where Linklater was and sort of where he's come to. It's not my favorite movie that we covered here.
Okay.
But I think that it's a very, very good movie. And I think part of why I find it to be, and I'm going to say I was a little disappointed by the film, but I'm going to lay out why. Simply because everyone told me that this is an experience. So expectations were running very, very high for this film.
I cannot help with that.
And that's never fair. Never fair, because
Sure.
that does mess with the way I go to see a movie. That probably played into a huge part of why I hated Guardians of the Galaxy so much. I'm going to bring it up every podcast. But I still thought it was an incredible effort, and I think it's a very, very good film, and I do think it's an absolute travesty that it lost Best Picture to fucking Birdman, which we'll talk about later.
Spoiler, we're never going to cover Birdman.
No, we will not cover Birdman. So, okay, in my thoughts, and to sort of justify what I say, I feel like it's a step back from the Before trilogy, in that it kind of reverts back to some of the problems I have with Dazed and Confused, if I have them.
Okay.
Because Dazed and Confused is the characterization, and I know people are probably getting sick of me saying this, it's the characterization and the style and the gimmick. Mm-hmm. This is the characterization, the style, and the gimmick, but again, not the plot. The plot doesn't exist anymore. The plot is simply life, which is a gimmick.
Yes.
The movie has characters. It has fantastic characterization to it, and on those merits, it's great. But I feel like he's gone here before, and it just didn't have anything new on offer that I was really able to sink my teeth into. It was the 9 out of 10 movie I expected it to be. So in that regard, it still wins the blue ribbon. For me, it doesn't win the trophy on the shelf, though, of this 5, based on that
Right.
reasoning. So it has a lot more to do, I guess, within the context of the 5 films we've covered than it has to do with the movie on its own.
Sure.
Because movies this good are not made very often, and it should be praised for that. Within the context of the Linklater 5, it's allowed to be a bit of a disappointment.
That makes sense. And let's start off the conversation by talking about the gimmick itself, because how can you not? Mm-hmm. I think with so many different types of gimmick movies, you have to expand beyond the gimmick to justify the gimmick. I once saw a film that was entirely...
Which Slacker never does.
Slacker's a bit fun.
Okay, sorry to cut you off.
I once saw a film that was entirely an iambic pentameter, and I can't tell you what the plot was, but I can tell you it was all an iambic pentameter.
Sure.
And that is the thing. When you see movies that are all one shot, like, to me, Russian Ark is more about it being one shot than it is about the exploration of art and themes in this Russian museum. This movie
goes beyond, like 12 Angry Men takes place in one room, going beyond its
exactly.
gimmick.
That's everything. That's something you maybe mentioned when you talk about that movie. Mm-hmm. This, because it's so, no one's made a movie over 13 years before. It has to be said, but when you watch it, it is you forget about the gimmick, even though it's always there because you're watching these actors age, scene to scene. The film is very smart by never having, like, a year on screen. In fact, the best way you can always tell what year it is based on the music selections that are happening.
Yes, and again, the Linklater soundtrack.
Yep, yes. Which is a great way to do it. In fact, when I first saw it in theater, I knew the film was ending soon because I recognized the song and I was still on the radio. Mm-hmm. It's like, uh-oh, we're running out of time.
No, You're right, and that was incredible foresight by Linklater to do that. That was so incredible smart foresight.
And that it works so well as a story that you're just almost shocked that it wasn't completely written 13 years ago, and they just kind of got a variety of brothers to do this, because the story, which is just life and moments, it means so much more. It's almost surprising how much plot is in this, because, as I mentioned, the husbands, the mother and father start off divorced in the beginning of the film, and she goes through 2 more husbands during the story, and those are both difficult.
Yes.
And those definite, like, written plot points do trigger different kind of emotional arcs that you see. You see...
If not completely predictable.
Sure. With like, the alcoholic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in how that's going to affect the family.
Sure.
And I always had a good idea of the next iteration of Mason I was going to see based on what came before. Thus, it lost a little bit of its impact for me.
And there's also something fun about the Masons, because, like, so when I saw him do interviews for, like, the Oscars and whatnot, first of all, it was the most hysterical Oscar battle of all time, because you had a studio and a cast and crew who really wanted to win the Oscar, just Birdman, and some other guys were like, yeah, we're proud of the movie. You guys want me to come to your show? Sure.
Yeah.
And, like, it was just Linklater, who was probably high, happy for everybody. And the guy who plays Mason is exactly... He might just be Ethan Hawke's child. Those two talk exactly the same way about life and philosophy and everything.
do.
And I loved watching the movie again, because you start to see when the real Mason, Ellar Coltrane, like, his personality starts to develop, because like, he gets a very, like, quieter style around puberty. And it's definitely the actor and the character kind of blending together.
Absolutely.
And that was a really cool thing to happen, because, of course, Patricia Arquette changed in the past 13 years, and different life points and whatnot. But, yeah, she didn't go through these 13 years.
No, she didn't go through...
She's still an actress, and she can bring different life point of view, but the 2 kids was really fun to see, especially since one of them was Linklater's daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. She actually asked to be killed off several times throughout the movie, and he said no, that would ruin the tone, so you have to just do a scene.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
That's really neat. I didn't know that, so I learned something new there. That's great.
Yeah.
When I said foresight earlier, I should mention that I know you can edit in soundtracks from the times, but there is a specific scene, I believe, when Sam is young and she's singing, like, Genie in a Bottle.
Yeah.
Or something, and that dates it for me.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, okay, we're in 1999 or 2000 or whatever when that came out.
For what I could tell, I could be wrong, I think they filmed and then they edited it that year, and then kind of came back to it, and then, like, of course, edited it all together as a movie.
Sure.
But, like, I think they did each song choice at the time.
Yeah, well, regardless.
Yeah.
It's just an excellent idea. But springboarding off what you said, I mean, there's a lot of tragic events that happen in this kid's life. There's a lot of goodness and kindness that happens in this kid's life, in Mason's life, in the families, you know. They do love each other very much, and that's evident throughout the whole film. But those are the ebbs and flows of life, and that's exactly what the film wanted to capture. It never goes to territory that gets too dramatic. You know what I mean? Like, it's never heightened. It's always really grounded, and it seems like this is life. You know, this is that. It's not a special coming of age story. This isn't a King Arthur or Sword in the Stone. This is Mason growing up. That's the story of the film. And in that way, I was able to sort of, because I went through a lot of the same stuff Mason did. Now, I didn't have an alcoholic father. I didn't have an abusive father. But, you know, my parents, I remember when they were together. I remember when they got divorced. I remember what that was like. I remember when they were a boyfriend. I remember I had a sibling. You know, like, I remember not having enough money. Like a lot of these trials and tribulations, I did sort of go through in some regards. So in that way, I began to anticipate what would sort of come next, and in particular changes to Mason's mom, because, you know, I was raised mainly by my mom as a single parent, and I saw some of those changes with my mom as well. But that being said, that what makes it so grand in that regard is that this is such a great portrait of it's the literal drawing the height on the wall and marking that child, which is a scene in the film. It's the literal doing of that and seeing the progression and the voyage of the character. But because it is not exceptional in any way, it's trapped by its own gimmick too.
You know, I think it almost is it's a different kind of format, because I was expecting almost the celebration of the gimmick going in. But in fact, the scenes that you may expect to be in this movie aren't in this movie. There is no first kiss.
Right.
There is no graduation scene like that.
There's a graduation.
There's a graduation, but it's
post-graduation.
a different kind of context, because like with this, to me, the movie almost felt like a memory of like.
I agree with that.
These are the memories that you stick with you in childhood and in boyhood, and that's what it captured so well that it almost felt unnerving. It's not when your dad taught you how to play catch. It's more of when you asked your dad when you're sleeping one night, "Is there magic in the world?"
Yeah, and
it's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, some of the vignettes are more special than others. They're more. Some days are mundane. Some days are special days. That's what life is.
It's what sticks in your head.
Yes, it's what sticks in your head, and in that regard, it does operate very much like a memory. There are special days I wish I remembered better.
Yeah, me too.
There are, but I still always remember that football practice that one day. You know what I mean? And in that, while I felt like it at times. Not at times, overall, was trapped by its own gimmick. It could never break through that wall. It never wanted to.
Nope.
And that's, I think, important to consider. And two, because it didn't, it was able to be... The vision felt less... It felt more pure. I think it made the movie more distinct. That's why we'll remember Boyhood, because... It has a resonant sort of verisimilitude, I guess.
And there's something that you really start to connect with about Mason and his entire family. I mean, I really like the four of them so much, and you care about them.
Yeah. Including the dad.
The dad
he goes on a huge voyage in this film too.
And they structure that so well, because you're with the mom all the time, because she's the one raising them. So it's kind of when he arrives, and they structure it so well where he arrives in that muscle car, the minivan, the mustache. It is such a, like, even within their eyes, things are happening like behind the scenes, and they missed him turning into a dork.
Yeah,
basically, and you subtly hint, you get the timeline of when she got pregnant and when all this happened.
Yeah, he wasn't ready to be a father.
No,
and she wasn't ready to be a mother. And to her credit, she was a mother, and she did the best that she could.
Yeah,
he matured.
He did.
He needed that time, and he took it. And I'm not saying that's right that he did it. In fact, He missed significant portions of Mason's life when he was young.
Yeah.
But he is Mason's dad, and he grew up too, and he became an important figure in his life, not just to Mason, but to Sam as well. And they love him, and he loves them, and there is a reconciliation at the end. There's also sort of a realization. I don't think that the mom and dad should have stayed together or been together.
No.
They were two people that should be apart. That said, of the partners featured in this film, he's the one you're the most down on in the beginning. And he is, by the end, and probably from the beginning, too, he's the best father figure in Mason's life.
Yeah.
Far and away.
Yeah.
So.
And in a way that evolved really well. Because when he's introduced, you're watching him be a dad for the first time. So you're watching some really curious bumps. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually enjoy wincing at the bowling scene because he's just overdoing it.
Yeah.
He's just overdoing every single ball that's being thrown. Mm-hmm. Because it's all he knows.
Right.
And it's great. And he's being very sincere.
Well, to him, the kids are an amusement.
Correct.
To the mom that has to be there every single day with those children, mm-hmm. that's her life.
Right.
And I understand her frustration. She's the mom. She has to be the disciplinarian. She's got to be a lot of things that he just gets to show up and be the hero. Mm-hmm. And that's frustrating for her as a character, and I understand and empathize with that. But that's what he is. That's the only way he knows how to be. He's young. They're his kids. He loves his kids. He's overdoing the fun factor.
Yeah.
And he's able to make these memories where she doesn't really have that luxury. You know what I mean? I felt sorry for her in those sequences quite a bit early in the film. I mean, I feel sorry for her a lot in this film, but in particular there.
But talk a little bit more about Ethan Hawke as the dad. There are just kind of two scenes that really kind of show the great part of the evolution, which is very quiet in the film. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he's in the car, and it is a great commentary on how parents talk to kids, which is what'd you say? Nothing. Then he does a very before kind of monologue going like, well, why don't you tell me things? Why don't you tell me that Susie...
Oh, that's a great scene. Yeah.
And then Samantha just brilliantly says, well, why don't you tell us stuff, Dad? What happened at your work? Who are you dating? And he's got a pause and goes, so we should make it more natural.
We should make it more natural. Yeah, no, it's very good.
And that's great.
The scene where he talks to Sam about using condoms.
Yeah.
Either A, not having sex, please do that, but if you are, please use condoms. That's a wonderfully awkward conversation. Yeah. It's also really funny when you consider Richard Linklater was the director.
Yes. And Magnus Lauder did take over take.
Yeah.
But then you have, at the end of the film, which I'm going to talk a whole lot more about, but basically as you're doing a series wrap for everybody, the real series wrap for the dad is when they're hanging out before a concert. And they're talking about Mason's breakup, and they're talking in a way where they're not talking exactly as peers, but they're talking as a father and son who are really communicating well. And the dad isn't just saying things that he wants the son to hear about the breakup and whatnot. He's helping. Yeah. He's being a really good dad right now, and he's better at it. He's noticeably better at being a dad at this age. I mean, he's got some stuff going on.
Sure.
As everyone does.
Everyone does.
In fact,
that's part of growing up, is to learn. You learn that everyone has their own stuff going on.
None of their lives end today. No one dies in the final thing of the movie. In fact, one of the best scenes in the movie is Patricia Arquette's final scene, which is not at all what you're expecting for the mom's final scene in the movie, where she just breaks down. And it's so tragic, and it's such a sad thing where she no one knows what to say, and then she keeps thinking there's more than this.
Yeah, and
it's mean, but it's mean in a way about how much she loves her kids.
Yeah,
and it's so I love how complex that scene is.
Well, yeah, I'm 30 years old and I don't have kids, and part of that is because I know that my life is over as soon as I have them.
Because they're going to murder you.
Well, I mean, you are you can't be selfish anymore. And then, 18, 19, you're never going to be appreciated as much as you should be. That's not what that relationship's about.
Yeah.
You decided to have the kids. They didn't decide to be here. You made that decision, and thus you're responsible for them. And then you get to that point where now he's finally leaving, and now you're 20 years older, and it's a bit of a crisis, I would imagine.
Yeah, especially because this is a character, and
Who's gone through hell.
She's gone through hell, and she's gone through hell not because of chance. It's because she was working so fucking hard to make their lives better.
Right.
She is, I mean, you watch, she has the most plot things happen to her, and a lot of it revolves on her
definitely.
Going to school or every weekend of the day, moving so she can get a better job. I mean, obviously for her own ambitions as well, but also, as she keeps saying to them, I'm doing this for you in a way that's always noticeable and it's always hard because she has to deal with so much of the economics of them, of the household.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why she was getting married, too. So she wasn't marrying for the right reasons when she met these two other men. The last guy didn't seem like a bad guy. He just had a drinking problem.
He just also, like...
Kind of common.
He had a drinking problem.
I didn't get that he was physically abusive or anything
No.
that.
I think he just wasn't ambitious.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He had a structure that worked really well for him when he was in the armed services, and it wasn't like he didn't know how to like adjust to life outside of that, like the Hurt Locker. It was just he didn't have. You see people when they leave college. This is a guy in a rut without structure.
Yeah, and evidenced by the fact he's the corrections officer and whatnot too. The guy in the middle is a nightmare. I mean, it's just horrible.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that actor just did a great job.
He was frightening.
He was just frightening. Yes, he was. The second husband, the second man in her life, the first husband, I think. I don't think, was she married to Ethan Hawke? I'm not sure. Anyway, so...
You know, I've never thought about it.
Yeah, I don't know if they were or not. I don't know if it ever says it. But that said, he's physically abusive and emotionally abusive, and he's a nightmare. And I part of me does wonder, because Mason and Sam had a stepbrother and a stepsister with in that time that they had great relationships with. That was actually in the film. I wonder what happened to them. You do think that
they want you kind of to think so much about the scenes between the scenes, and also that storyline is one of the best incidences that Linklater shows his hand a little bit of like where he always knew the story was arcing because. He is first introduced in a brief scene at the end of 1 year where I think Mason like pretends to be sick and he's just kind of sitting in the back of the classroom his mom's be a student in. And as he kind of like Mason watches the mom and him like chat together, and you see like, a little bit of flirting happen, and he kind of keeps walking backwards towards the door as kind of like wide-eyed child, just kind of cares what's going on. Next scene, they're coming back from the honeymoon. Like it was definitely like, what am I seeing here? Cut to
and it infers that they're going to have a relationship.
And there's a year between those shots.
Also, he's not a bad guy for a while. Like there's at first he seems like a really good dad, a real put together. In fact, Mason's dad, the Ethan Hawke character, writes a song and features saying she's got a good husband now. Like she says that, like they get along.
Yeah.
Boy, does that turn into a nightmare.
That's like a 10-year professor kind of thing. You know? It is hard
He's like
to
that
watch.
Weird Dad charming.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's hard to watch it a second, third time because you see the things in there. Like, the things that are going on at that dinner back from the honeymoon of, like, what he's angrily focusing on.
Yeah.
And he keeps ordering more wine for the table when there's, like, one adult more at the table.
Yeah.
It's
two
really
alcohol
brilliant.
problems between the two,
Here's a weird question that I've only had adults answer this way. I'm curious about your answer. Did you think anything bad was going to happen in this movie? It's like Mason.
No, because I know Linklater.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about earlier when I said that it's trapped by the gimmick. If anything big, not that bad things can't happen to people in real life. I'm not saying that at all. But that flair for it would have been too dramatic for Linklater and for what his vision was. Like when you say bad, what do you mean? Like the sister would die or something like that?
I was with a bunch of people who saw this film, and they were all convinced that he was going to get in a car accident, he was going to get hurt, he was going to get sick. And I realized why they thought that is because the way adults talk to children, especially when they're teenagers, they end every conversation with like a warning.
Yeah.
Don't text and drive.
Don't text and drive.
So everything feels like it's foreshadowing the ominous because that's what they're doing.
Not
Whereas,
with Linklater, though. Like, it did cross my mind. I mean, it definitely did cross my mind. Other films, I think it would have been, but you're not going to take 13 years to build this up like this to kill Mason. I think that would have been a really cheap move to do something like that, and frankly, I just don't think that was what he ever had in mind. Maybe part of that is because Linklater loves his character so much, I can't imagine him actually killing one off that he loves like that.
I'm trying to think of any example.
Yeah, I was too while I was saying that. But, you know, and it does feel like it could be built. There are going to be bad things that happen in Mason's life. And sometimes they do. But that's life. And that's what Linklater was focused in on showing. Not to be dramatic, not anything like that, just normal.
And there's something really interesting about the way he filmed the ending, because you've now worked 13 years for this ending. What are you going to do? And when I saw it the first time, I didn't like this part of it, and then on subsequent viewings I liked it a whole lot more. In that, in the final chapter, it's pretty much focused entirely around the post-graduation. He's even wearing his robe for most of it. Mm-hmm. It's very clearly like a series wrapping everybody.
Sure.
But for the first time in the movie, there's a hyper-focus on where he is in his life. And I was thinking, like, that's too on the nose. Okay, it's a meta thing. Okay, the movie's ending, the whole experience ending. But it's not, because that's how it happens when you're kind of in high school. And it's too much for him. He's kind of annoyed by it. But, like, there's a reason all these people keep going, like, it means so much to me that you're now, like, it's exciting to watch you go to your next chapter.
Well, yeah, because this film, the way this film is, we see Mason grow up. So we observe Mason grow up. Mason doesn't observe himself grow up. That's not how life works. These people look back, having seen their whole life played out before them, and they're able to mark time in a completely different way than Mason is. They're able to look at this moment and say, you just graduated, you're about to go to college. This is a big moment. Mm-hmm. For Mason, well, it's just life. This is always what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is how I felt, yeah.
Which is how I felt, too. But if I have children one day, I'm going to be marking time the same exact way. And this is a movie that understands that. Not just in the relationships, the way, you know, by the end of the movie, his mom and dad are talking to them the way adults talk to older teenagers or kids in college. You stop being parents so much as you start becoming friends. You start to know your parents aren't perfect at this point. You know that they have problems. You have problems. That's life. But it marks it. It's good to have the graduation, because now first of all, it's a celebration, so it can mark the end in that type of note. Plus, we say that our society says you come of age when we send you out on your own. That is when it is. So It's not forced here. That is the marker. Once you graduate from high school and you're moving on to college, or you're moving on to train school, or you're moving on to get a job, or you're moving out or doing whatever, that's when we decide you're on your own. And this movie's called Boyhood. It's not called Manhood. So,
and there's something really interesting, because the film could have just ended on like him walking the house kind of thing. But it decides to go a little bit further, and the way
I really liked this.
The way that works so well for me is because not only do we kind of see him outside the context, we see a structural thing that implies a new chapter in a way that Mason is for the first time conscious of. Because with the past few years, especially when you see him with his high school girlfriend, this is now the first time really in Mason's life because we're starting to see him express himself really kind of quietly throughout the whole movie. And the big thing he loves to do is to be a photographer. Mm-hmm. And that is very much you being kind of quietly there and adding your kind of insight. And then he's much more talkative in the last, half hour or so of the movie. Because now he has theories about what the NSA is doing and how bullshit this is and what Facebook means and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It is delightful to listen to. It is high school rambling of, I guess, the man. It's great.
Sure.
But she never talks. And they have a really good time together, and they're awesome. They have wonderful chemistry, and there's a really awesome relationship. But he was never kind of being challenged in a way. He enjoyed their time together, but didn't, adore her isolated thing, which is fine. This is a high school relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just a small thing when he's now in a whole new location, whole new people, and he's just with someone else, and now someone's doing a conversation like that to him.
He's quiet.
And he's quiet, and he's listening, and he's excited.
Yes.
And the film ends. And that's the new
film
chapter.
ends. And the thing that we have to remember about that scene, too, is it's the only scene where Mason's on his own.
Yep, no other...
All the other scenes that I can think of, he's usually with either a best friend that he's had, his sister, his mom, or his dad, or something like that. He met these people today. Mm-hmm. They may be his friends for the next 4 years in college. They may be friends for one more year, just as long as he's in the dorm, and then he decides what he wants to be, and he finds a new clique or whatever.
Yep.
But in those moments, and I remember those moments because I had them, and I'm able to look back, mm-hmm. you feel really alive. And I feel like I felt like in that respect, those conversations, those moments, that's the strength of the film. That's what the film should end on. And now Mason's a man.
Yeah.
He's on his own. He did it. Right?
And that's the end of the episode, I think.
And that's the end of the episode.
So we did it. That was 50 episodes. This was the end of our Richard Linklater 5. I think this was a very satisfying end to the 5 and to the first 50 episodes. Here's to 50 million more.
50 million more, sure.
We want to end at 50 million and 50. That's what we want to do.
50 movies. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. So you can join us next Wednesday when we are going to do a wrap-up for Richard Linklater, which will probably be majority talking about the Before trilogy. And we'll announce our new 5. Until then, you can follow us on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. Email us at letstake5@theartofmore.com. Leave a comment at theartofmore.com. Check out the other podcasts there, including The Immortals, where yesterday we reviewed Young Frankenstein and the British documentary series Walking with Dinosaurs. And Ad Absurdum has a new podcast out that came out this week where they are reviewing another Ethan Hawke film, Gattaca, which I'm very excited to hear their episode because I wonder if you should do that to jeans. We'll find out Ad Absurdum. Where can we find you, Eric?
You can find me at Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel. Check it out.
All right.
Oh, and again, just in case you didn't catch our Skull of Rock podcast, because I know everyone follows this podcast hoping for Skull of Rock to pop out.
Yeah.
But thanks for all the people. This is, as of right now, we're recording this at the end of March. This will come out after that. But thanks for everyone coming out in force. Podcast numbers were up substantially this month. So thanks for telling your friends. I hope I didn't talk over Austin too much, and did I talk over you too much?
I was really quiet the entire time. So
well, now that you're like now that I feel like the audience is getting bigger now, I'm like super self-conscious because I hate my voice and I talk over you too much. So great, but thanks for everyone coming out in force. We really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
We're going to be catching you very soon. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Birdman sucks.
Dad, there's no real magic in the world, right?
What do you mean?
You know, elves and stuff. People just made that up.
I don't know. I mean, what makes you think that elves are any more magical than something like a whale? You know what I mean? What if I told you a story about how underneath the ocean there was this giant sea mammal that used sonar and sang songs, and it was so big that its heart was the size of a car and you could crawl through the arteries? I mean, you'd think that's pretty magical, right?
Yeah. But, right this second, there's, no elves in the world, right?
No. Technically, no elves.